Hi, this is Inspiring Honesty, and I'm your host, Greg Brahe. I'm an atheist. I'll be joined today again by Bob Greaves, my wonderful, fantastic co-host, and we have a special guest on today. He goes by Gus, but it's Agustin Astacio. Gus is, and he gave me an introductory piece here for him that I think I want to cover as well as I can, but he is a third generation former Jehovah's Witness. And he co-hosts an internet talk show that airs weekly, features mainly exit testimonials from former Jehovah's Witnesses and other cultists, scholarly guests, and theological discussions and debate on Christianity and cults. That show is called Healing XJW's Radio. He also is a moderator and a regular contributor on a website that's a interreligious blog, healingxjws.com. He has received some theological training and has worked as a pastoral assistant for 5 years. I'm now in the Lutheran Church, the Missouri Synod, but attends a Baptist church. So I'm curious and have a lot of discussions. As I've mentioned on the show before, I study regularly with a Jehovah's Witness who's a very good friend of mine, so I'm very familiar with a lot of their doctrine. Again, as an atheist, I don't agree with it, but it's certainly something that I would love to hear the testimony of somebody who was part of it before. So with no further ado, first I wanted to invite Bob to the show. Bob, welcome.
Well, thank you. It's great to be back. I've enjoyed so much all of these shows we've had and the guests we've had. I'm looking forward to today's show as well with Gus.
Me too. And Gus is joining us by telephone today, so we will have him with us. But Gus, would you like to say hi to the audience? Welcome to the show.
Greetings, everyone.
You sound like Bob when you open with greetings. That's standard. Greetings.
It's a common problem with all of us good people.
Well, that's why I don't do that then. Gus, I want to say how much I appreciate that you're going to be, or that you're here on the show. You are the first. Well, I don't know how to say this other than the first person that I see as having a mission similar to my own, but in a very, very different way that we have on here. So I'm really excited to see. I loved on the website, the Healing XJWs, where you have the members of this forum are either thinking of leaving the organization, have left, or want to learn about the Watchtower Society and why so many of its members have left, or why so many of its members leave. And it goes on from there, but I love the way that it ends to say, this site is about healing and recovery, a place that honors each one's freedom to ask questions, explore, and discover who we are. I love that. I think that is a fantastic mission statement of sorts.
Well, it's a unique one amongst, I guess, exit counseling amongst the cults, and particularly amongst Jehovah's Witnesses. It's actually Nate Beckman's the innovator of the website and the radio program. I just hopped along, and we have different moderators from different religious backgrounds. We have Linda, who's a shamanist. We have Ben, who I would say is an agnostic, who is somewhat in denial of his agnosticism, but he clings to his Christianity, but I would definitely label him as agnostic. And we have Nate and myself, whom are Christians, and I would say I am a Christian with various leanings, and so I'm not an in-your-box fundamentalist. I have different varying beliefs that would probably gain me some ostracism amongst the counter-cult community in different respects.
My kind of guy.
Exactly. We appreciate that here at Inspiring Honesty. That is our kind of guest. So thank you for being honest about your beliefs in that respect with yourself and with the other people. Now, you said it would probably bring, I forget the exact wording, but it might cause discord among the other. I'm sorry, I forget the word that you used, but among the other
counter-cultists.
Counter-cultists, thank you. That's I want to know. I mean, when you say it might, does that mean that you're still hiding some of the things about yourself, or are you open with these and you just deal with it as it comes?
Yeah, exactly. I'm very open about my beliefs, and I deal with them as they come. But I'm not a confrontational type of person about my beliefs. I'm not going to impose them upon others. They are, I guess, my personal beliefs, and I always try. If anyone questions me on them, I say, well, just be open-minded and have room for exploration. So.
I love again that the way you word that with saying be open for exploration, be open to. And I read one of your testimonies on a different website, and there was a quote on there that I wrote down because I thought it was fantastic as well. It says, "I do not want to impress upon any the need to accept the things I have, but urge all to investigate and examine all things you may be taught by the Watchtower or by any man." I
Right,
think that is
absolutely.
marvelous the way that you.
Well, I mean, the thing is that when you're in a controlling or mind control cult, I think it is our obligation for those that do exit from cults that have a hard and fast control over its membership, is to allow people to come to their own individual through exploration, their own individual beliefs. Not to try to force or coerce others into your particular framework, but to you can, I guess, express your particular belief system with the idea of sharing, and that's what we do at Healing HJWs. We share our different varying beliefs. We may maybe debate a little bit, and we may sometimes even argue, but we recognize that we have now the freedom and the liberty to explore and to test our own beliefs. And so mind control cults, of course, reject exploration, examination, and independent thinking, and the Jehovah's Witnesses particularly are adamant against independent thinking. They've published several of their magazines deriding independent thinking as evil and insidious and to be avoided. And so the first thing that you learn when you come out of a mind control cult is that whatever my beliefs are, those are my beliefs. I came to those conclusions. I may believe that this truth is my truth, and I may want others to come to that conclusion, but I will allow them the freedom to explore that and come to their own conclusions, whether if my truth is truth.
I love the way that you have come to that. And Bob, did you have anything you want to say? You generally have a lot of insight when it comes to things of this nature.
I like what I'm hearing Gus talk about, and I think that in some ways he's shifted from this extreme isolation to a genuine openness about let all things come out. Let's talk about things. Let's not hide anything. And Gus, I really want to commend you on what I think is just wonderful that you're committed to the idea that we don't want to coerce or control anybody, but let them genuinely and freely think as they do, without regard to where that's taking them, so that what they do end up saying or thinking is something that is genuinely a reflection of their most honest efforts. I like that a lot, and I think that it's something also. I'm curious if you think you're seeing more of this. I'd say like back in the 70s when you saw people coming out of certain mind control groups, they would sometimes go into some other form of either moderate mind control, or they would just go into a real angry kind of atheism or something. But to see people who are genuinely still open to the idea of faith or not faith, this is something that seems to be new, and yet I'm running into it in a variety of places. So I find it refreshing that you're there. Do you find that you're running into it in other places, like say maybe people who used to be Mormons or who used to be whatever fundamentalists and things like that? Are you running into it?
Oh, absolutely, all the time. I would say probably about 90% of the Jehovah's Witnesses that leave that religion do lean towards an angry atheism, and that's an understandable position because
Mhm.
when you come from a particular religious order that is so controlling and so adamant on absolute uniformity of beliefs, then you're going to reject, any attempts of uniformity and conformity to one particular belief system. And so I encountered many angry atheists, and I do have some friends that are atheists that are not so angry and that are free to explore and to discuss and dialogue. And that's why I think that our particular forum, the blog site that Nate began, is a very unique place because most discussion boards, discussion lists do have this us versus them mentality,
Mm-hmm.
and that us versus them mentality is the same type of mentality that we exited from, and we don't want to propagate. I think that the more the older that I get, and I've been 14 years a Christian, I've evolved as a Christian. I've learned that I guess I've become a lot more ecumenical in my belief system. I was fundamentalist when I first exited the Jehovah's Witnesses, and the more that I've been exposed to people of different faiths, I've come to realize that this us versus them mentality is actually the wrong mentality to have. No one wants to be labeled the devil's child, or no one is purposely trying to go against God, and so people come to certain conclusions based upon their environment, sometimes based upon the people they've encountered, and sometimes based upon their education.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that as I've become older, I've become a lot more open to dialogue with people of varying faiths, and I think that there's always something that you can gather from any mutual dialogue, and that's the point.
For the sake of context, though, I'm curious. I certainly don't want us to be bad mouthing the organization, and I'm sure you're not really interested in doing that. But for the purpose of clarity, I was wondering if you could share with us some of the ways in which you experience the Jehovah's Witnesses as maintaining such a strong control over people who might start to think for themselves. A lot of people who may be listening aren't familiar with how, the General Counsel in Brooklyn, publishes certain things, and we don't really necessarily know who they are all the time, and how they maintain control over making sure people aren't independently thinking. If you could you share with us some of the things that you've experienced in that regard that you're familiar
actually
with?
Expand on that just a little bit too, and say beyond just the Jehovah's Witnesses but to go into the blog that you're a part of, why what you do is so important and how it helped you. I know after reading a bit about your history that things of that nature, groups that help people, counter cult groups, were a big assistance to you. So if you could touch on that too, that'd be fantastic. A little bit of the history there.
Well, the Jehovah's Witnesses, I would say that there's a difference between a mind-controlling cult and probably, I guess, just another Christian religion. And cults generally are a threat to their own laity, physically, financially, in many different aspects, even their own lives, their livelihood and their own lives. This is why Jim Jones and Branch Davidians, which were communal cults, were such a threat, because they were a threat to their own. They practiced sometimes abuse by the leader, having sexual abuse amongst the members, and of course they're tantamount to suicide. We know about the UFO cult, TMBO, I forgot the name, the Heaven's Gate cult. So the Jehovah's Witnesses are probably not, they're not the equivalent of a communal cult, but they're very, very, very close to the equivalent of a communal cult because of the high amount of control. Some of their particular doctrines that are in endangerment to their own is the way they treat pedophiles in the religion. They protect pedophiles because they fear public information about them that would dishonor their God. And so they lie in court about situations. Another area is the blood transfusion doctrine.
I want to say before we go on from that one, that is that a well-documented phenomenon? I mean, I am one that very strongly supports making sure that the claims of that nature are not just a general opinion or conjecture. Is there evidence that that actually has been going on, similar to the evidence in the Catholic Church?
Wikipedia actually covers that some too. Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to make sure on that one. Just and where you said Wikipedia would be a good place to find out more on that.
We're all talking at the same time. Yeah. On Wikipedia, it also mentions that some of the criticisms that it's it seems to be more commonly known that the issue of pedophilia. Now, in all fairness, I can appreciate the fact that they'd like to control the bad press. And so I'm sure that it's not their intention to cover this up just because they don't care about it. But it seems to me that their isolationism makes this strategy make sense to them. And unfortunately, this seems to be a documented reality that when issues of pedophilia have occurred, that you just can't get to the bottom of it, and they will not let it out. So I mean, there is some documentation to that effect. But then again, when they don't let it out and you don't find anything out, we're basically what we're talking about is the evidence of smoke.
Well, I mean, their pedophilia issues have been well documented, and largely the reason why they don't want this information to disseminate amongst the public is because they believe that they should handle their own issues in-house, no matter what the governing authorities have to say, because they teach that the governing authorities are under the control of the devil. And so even though the Bible says that God has placed the governing authorities and that we should be subject to those governing authorities, they believe that, and they believe also the disillusionment that the devil controls all the governing authorities, and therefore they cannot trust their affairs in the hands of Satan's people. And so they have no molesters in the congregations that they do not report to the police, to the authorities. There was just recently a landmark case where they lost. It's called the Candace Conti case. They lost this case, and they had to pay, I think, somewhere in $18 million.
$21 million is what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was I think 27, but I think it was I think their
court costs.
Yeah, 27 in totality, but I think it was the immediate bond was 18. So they have. This is not the first time. They've had several cases where what they've done normally was settled out of court, and of course the compromise for settling out of court was that the person had to not disclose the case to the public, and so they've protected. It's funny is known victims of pedophilia in their midst, and what they've done is sent their lawyers to protect the actual pedophiles, and they've excommunicated the victims of the pedophilia because the victims did what they should have done was they've gone to the authorities and because they've gone to the authorities, these victims are disfellowshipped because they didn't rely upon Jehovah's organization, which is what they would refer to them as.
Disfellowshipping is something that I think Bob had touched on a bit, and it's one of the questions that I had. Could you explain a bit more about what disfellowshipping is, what that means? I know that when you leave the organization, there's some serious consequences behind that, and it's different with the fact that me, as an atheist, one of my, again, best friends, Jehovah's Witness, and he can talk to me about whatever he wants to, and we can have conversations on a regular basis, him knowing that I'm not only an atheist, but an actively evangelical one. And that's okay, but he can't talk to friends of his that have been disfellowship. Can you explain a bit more about how that works?
Well, church discipline is not uncommon even amongst the evangelical realm, but I think that their identity with church discipline and evangelical identity with church discipline are on two different planes. Most evangelicals, Protestant churches, I think even the Catholic Church, excommunication is simply a denial of membership of the person by means of partaking in the communion bread and wine, and so they would be refused to partake in those emblems. But for Jehovah's Witnesses, it's a lot more. Because they don't really partake in the communion emblems, they regard communication as the emphasis of their excommunication, which they call it disfellowshipping. So you would not fellowship with a Jehovah's Witness that has been disfellowshipped, or a Jehovah's Witness that has disassociated themselves from the organization. And so there are many things that could cause you to be disfellowshipped with, cheating on your wife, premarital sex, and also primarily any difference of beliefs with the organizational beliefs. So one of the central beliefs of the Jehovah's Witnesses is that Jesus returned invisibly in 1914, and he was enthroned in 1914, invisibly. If I was a Jehovah's Witness and I said, well, I don't believe Jesus came back invisibly in 1914, I don't think he's come back at all, I could be disfellowshipped for disagreeing with the hierarchy on that teaching. And so disfellowship means that my family, my friends, all the people I know at the Kingdom Hall would not even speak a word to me. If they saw me on the bus, they would walk past me. If I said hi to them, they would not respond. They would treat me like I was literally invisible. And so as a former Jehovah's Witness myself, I'm a third-generation Jehovah's Witness, my entire family, they do not call me. My mother, she had a wedding, and they said I could come to the wedding, but I could not come to the reception. My grandparents' funeral, I was not allowed to go, or I was told not to come. So there are different things that, so as far as my family, I'm cut off, literally. But I know there are certain nuances where it gives me freedom, and that's with my children. I can talk to my mother about my kids, but I can't discuss anything doctrinally or anything about my spiritual life with her.
Now, of course, they're going to abide by these rules, but you don't have to, do you?
Policy.
Yeah. Would that be true that you're not required to abide by these rules, but they are? Because if you're not a part of that anymore, then they don't possess that. Right.
Yeah, but what's funny is that they would expect me to abide by those rules even though I've left. It's sheer arrogance.
Yeah. I imagine that is a lot of us can't imagine the difficulty and the pain of that. Because we're talking about your family, people you've known, people who are extended, people who really are part of your network of life. It's just that's amazing. How's that working for you? I mean, are you kind of at a point where you're this is okay, or you're working with it, or are there days when you really miss these people? Or I mean, tell me a little more about that. I'm really curious.
In the beginning, it was very, very difficult. I mean, I was the Lone Ranger. My wife was a believing Jehovah's Witness. My father-in-law was a believing Jehovah's Witness, and of course, all of my family, and extended family, were Jehovah's Witnesses. So I knew that in the beginning, when I was investigating and examining my beliefs and the history of my religion, that what I had to do was I had to do it subtly, and or I would have had repercussions. But I knew that when it came to the point where I had to make a choice about my conscience or my religion, and I knew that I had to follow my conscience, and I knew that it would result in the repercussions of my family shunning me. I knew that it was going to be a difficult task, but it's not one that other people have not also done. Martin Luther against the Council of the Catholic Church, St. Paul, against his pharisaical peers, and so I knew that I had to follow my conscience, and my conscience had a much heavier price than even my extended family and what I would endure through that.
Gus, I'm sorry for what you went through. I mean, that's something that nobody should have to face, especially when you know it's coming, to have that choice come at you. And it's a big part of why I wanted to have you on the show, and not just because you went through it and you can share that personal experience, but because you do something about it to help other people. And I feel that in that, as odd as it may seem, you and I have a very similar cause. And in that respect, I'm not sure how familiar you are with this. It sounds like there's a person that's associated with your blog that may handle it a little bit, but the very same is true in a lot of ways about people who leave their faith entirely, regardless of what faith it happened to be. Atheism leads to a lot of shunning, a lot of backlash. I was afraid. I stayed in the closet for about 2 years, and before telling anybody. I was deathly afraid of telling my mother or my in-laws, because these are strong Catholics, and I married their daughter, and now they're finding out their daughter is married to an atheist, and that was a scary thing. I knew that it wouldn't have the same exact kind of repercussions, but I was lucky in that respect, and there have been a lot of people who have suffered in that way from even things like the Lutheran Church, or even the Unitarian churches have a history of disfellowshipping of sorts. So I love what you do in helping people through these transitions.
I'm not opposed to discipline within certain communities. I mean, if you're going to be a citizen of the United States, you have to abide by its laws. If you're going to be in the Lutheran Church, then and a member of that church, you should be expected to be agreeable within that community. You should be expected, to live by a certain moral code or standard. But I am opposed to any church or religion or organization that feels that any opposition to its beliefs, which is by conscience of the person, is not up for discussion or dialogue, then there's something wrong with that. And this was one of the critical issues that I had as a Jehovah's Witness. I didn't understand why we were, as Jehovah's Witnesses, told not to speak with ex-members. I thought that we had the truth and we had the light, and instead it looked like we was running from the darkness instead of exposing the darkness with our light. And so that is what really was one of the things that really bothered me, and I think it should bother any Christian. And I've come across closed-minded Christians who their response to someone who I guess would become an atheist. It could happen to my kids. My kids could become atheists, but they're still my kids. And I think that you shouldn't stop loving people because they are following their conscience. My kids became gay. My kids became Satanists. The exact opposite of Christianity. I think that the response, and maybe because of what I've endured, I'm a lot more open to these things, and probably more people should. My response would be, let's discuss these things. Let's discuss, why you believe what you believe and why you've abandoned your former beliefs. And, let's keep this, as a mutual discussion. But my kids would never stop being my kids, and so I would love them unconditionally, of whatever their beliefs are or choices that they make in their life.
It's a distinction I love that you make, the difference between loving them unconditionally and between having repercussions or consequences within the faith community. I absolutely agree. I think that any society or any culture needs to have rules and regulations to some extent, that there are consequences for breaking. And I think that, obviously it makes a lot of sense if you're part of a church community that says that polygamy is wrong, and suddenly somebody brings in their second wife, that can cause some issues. But the question, or the thing that I run into, is, where do you draw the line? How do you come upon, well, it's okay to punish for this type of behavior, but it's not okay to punish for this type of thought? And I personally, I'd probably draw the line there, that any type of thought is okay. It's the behavior is the only thing that can really be of consequence. But where do you draw the line?
I guess I would agree with you there. It would have to be what you do and not what you say, so to speak. But like I said, I don't think that. I guess punishment. I think that, and like I said, I hold some unorthodox positions. I mean, even within the evangelical community, I come across people that are, that are adamant against gay marriage, or adamant against abortion, and they want to go ahead and write the laws, and so that people that are gay cannot marry, and people that are having abortions cannot abort. And my opinion has always been, well, they could put an abortion clinic on every corner and it wouldn't faze me. And if all the people that are gay wanted to get married, then that doesn't bother me neither. I think that the Bible makes it clear that the church is to be concerned with the church, not be concerned with people who don't believe or don't share their beliefs, but to be more cumbersome about those that are within the body of the church. And so if someone chooses something that is not conducive with what the church teaches, then let them go to where a community that actually accepts that type of behavior or that type of line of thinking. And so, I've told this, I've had more close discussions with my old pastor from the Lutheran Church about this, and I said, there's a scripture there in the book of Thessalonians, and it says basically that you should be minding your own business. And so I don't think
scriptures like that seem to get ignored quite a bit.
Yeah, I don't think the Christian community should be telling other people what to do. Worry about your own family, your own household. And so, but I think that we can draw the line as far as punishment is concerned, and I think that the Jehovah's Witnesses go overboard by shunning people for thinking differently.
So you think it's both the degree of the punishment and what the punishment comes from?
Yeah, well, I know why they're doing what they're doing is because what they've done is they are a communal cult apart from an actual location. And they are probably as close to a communal cult without having an actual location. That is, they've created a bubble society. They want to retain the members they have, and they want to protect those members that they have within that bubble society. And so, how do they protect those members? Well, by telling those members not to expose themselves to other types of thinking, and not to associate with people that are not of their community, because Jehovah's Witnesses also, they are not supposed to associate with anyone out that's not a Jehovah's Witness. And what I mean by that is if Greg said to his Jehovah's Witness buddy that he knows, hey, let's go grab a beer together, as a Jehovah's Witness, he's not supposed to do that. Now, he won't be disfellowshipped for breaking that rule, but it is definitely one of those areas where Jehovah's Witnesses are told that they, outside of, their workplaces, they're not supposed to associate with work members outside of their workplaces and outside of their jobs. So these are not, they don't view you as an associate. They view you as what they call the world. And so it's a bubble society, and the only people that Jehovah's Witnesses are supposed to have a dinner with, a beer with, or any kind of, let's say a wedding anniversary celebration.
Social interaction.
Is with Jehovah's Witnesses. And,
so we have a couple viewer comments, and they're fantastic. I wanted to cover, there's one of them that says, why punish for anything and why not instead correct for everything? And then there's two more that are very related. So I'm going to ask you that one first, and then...
Well, that's a very good question. Actually, in the Lutheran church that I attended, they had no disciplinary policy when I went there. And something really, really adverse happened. The pastor's wife committed adultery. And so she was cheating with one of the youth leaders in the church, and my pastor was in utter denial that this was occurring, even though she left his home and went and moved in with this man. And so we discussed, and after about a year, it developed a disciplinary policy that would be corrective and loving. And that is that, first of all, you don't, if something like that situation, you want to give people an opportunity to repent of such behavior, to change their minds about those things. And so it's a process of correction, and that means that the elders would go and visit these two people and would discuss with them the gravity of their situation and how it's affected the community and her marriage and her vows and what he has done to himself to destroy this marriage and his vows that he's made before God. And so they developed a corrective measure that would be continually positive. That is, that it would reach out, it would be loving, and only if there was an absolutely utter negative response to the correction, and where the person says, look, I don't want to have anything to do with you, I don't want to have anything to do with your church, I could give a damn about God or Jesus or anything else, then they would say, okay, so you won't have any problem with excommunication. And
but is excommunication the furthest that you would say is an acceptable thing? I mean, again, as you mentioned, there's a difference between saying, well, you're not welcome to take communion at our church and to partake in the emblems, versus, well, we're going to pretend that you don't exist.
Right, exactly. Well,
that's never justified.
Standard excommunication is, a refusal to communion, not a refusal to church attendance. If someone who has been excommunicated decided that they still wanted to attend church every Sunday or every Wednesday, then so be it. In fact, that's the best place for them to be. you know, where else are they going to
Most
find,
churches, yeah.
a sense of conscience than by being present there and hearing the Word of God being spoken and in a powerful way through people and through teaching and through music. And so, and that's why I say that what Jehovah's Witnesses do, or their idea of discipline, is not corrective. It's punishment. And that's the difference. See, church discipline should be corrective, not punishment. And it should be loving, and it should be always with a hand extending one to return. But cults, extreme cults, are so hell-bent on preserving the people that they have there and exposing them to something that might taint their thinking towards another belief or another conscience, that they are so overprotective that what they do is they hand out quick and swift punishment and swift justice. And that's the difference
interesting
between...
on the Jehovah's Witness side of it, though, is that this is a body of belief that does not accept the hell doctrine. According to Jehovah's Witness, or my Jehovah's Witness friend, is if I'm not reborn on paradise on earth when that time comes at the second arrival of Jesus, I'll simply continue to not exist. The
Right.
annihilation side of it. And I think that's, when you talk about the coercive sides of punishment, there's a difference between Jehovah's Witnesses, since they don't have the threat of eternal punishment or eternal torture that most other mainstream Christian religions have. It might make more sense. I mean, I think that a lot of the Orthodox Jews of at least in the ancient times, didn't have any afterlife concept either. So their punishments were very corporeal and direct. So I think that might be on a sociological level related to the nature of the religion. It's much easier to dissociate punishment to something that exists after you die, and then still have you can have your cake and eat it too in those ways. So the church that you're a part of, have you accepted now the hell doctrine, or is that another one of your apostasy portions?
Actually, I go to a Southern Baptist, but I'm probably the furthest thing from a Southern Baptist. I'm a member in the Southern Baptist Church, and me and my family go there. And like I said, I've grown very ecumenical, and because of my experience in the church, I've served as a pastoral assistant in the Lutheran Church, and I've been to a couple of different non-denominational and denominational churches. In 14 years I've been a Christian. But I can go to any kind of church, pretty much, and fit in as long as my family and myself feel loved. And what it teaches or what it believes, it's pretty much of no consequence to me, because I know what I believe, and I've grown to the extent that I realize that more people often confuse uniformity with unity, and I don't think Christianity is intended to be uniformed. I don't think God ever intended Christianity to be uniformed, and there's a difference between unity and uniformity. There are.
Gus, I do want to give you a heads up. We have about 5 minutes left in the show, 5 or 6 minutes. So.
Oh wow!
Just, yeah, time flies here. So just wanted to let you know.
Well, I didn't even know it was. So I guess it's an hour-long show.
Well, it's technically 50
and
minutes.
We're having fun.
We give some time so that Bob can prep for his show, which comes directly after this one.
Okay. Well, so I would say that I go to a Southern Baptist church. I actually hold to a Greek Orthodox view of hell, which is a lot more loving view of hell. I don't know if you're familiar with the Greek Orthodox view of hell. But the Greek Orthodox view, which we're going to discuss actually on my program December 15th with a Greek Orthodox apologist, is a view that the reason why people in hell are in torment is because they're conditioned, and God's light and love permeates the universe, and they have succumbed to a condition that rejects God's light and love, and so just like any person who's sick, when they take medicine, it burns. And so the Greek Orthodox view, which actually rejects the Western view of hell and the Protestant view of hell, is more about God, His love, and His light illuminating the cosmos and how people react to that love and light. And those who, of course, have reacted adversely in this life to that light and love, they succumb to those emotions, completely in the next. And so their reaction is, it's painful for them because they do not care for God's love, and His light is, which those in heaven embrace and enjoy like a warm sunshine on a cool day, on their face. They bask in God's light and love. Those in hell do not bask in it. They hold it in disdain, and it's painful for them. So the Greek Orthodox view of hell is a lot different from the Western view, and I'm sure David will probably discuss it more, but maybe this is a topic we could discuss in the future at some time.
And I'd love to have you on the show again. And I think that we've not had the opportunity to really get into everything. We brushed the surface and had an introduction. So if you'd be willing, I'd love to have you again sometime in the future. I know that it's a dedication to ask people to come on Sunday evenings. It's generally a lot of family time, but we'll work something out if you're willing. Because there's more viewer comments and things to be part of. I did want to share one that just came in. It says, "Dear brother, we feel your pain. We too have been disfellowshipped. Our hearts are with you." And that's, I think, a lot of the New Covenant group looks at their experiences in much the same way. And just the questions that have been asked have led to a lot of consequences and personal lives of a lot of people. So you're certainly speaking to a crowd that can empathize, if not fully understand.
Oh, I'm glad, and like I said, we all have we all have value in this world, no matter what we believe. And I mean, Gandhi himself said it about Christianity. He says, you Christians, I like your Christ, but you Christians, not so much. And I think I empathize with Gandhi's statement there also.
Bob, is there anything else that you wanted to say before we have to wrap it up here?
I just would like to thank Gus and speak very, very, very admirably about his conscience. Gus, thank you so much. I realize you having gone through this was difficult, but you did what you had to do. You're not trying to be a hero, but you really are a hero. And I think that there's a lot of people who've been listening are inspired and encouraged by what you're doing. And you've lost some friends, you've been cut off from some family, but I hope you found a lot of people. And with the New Covenant group, I would say that people who believe, people who don't believe, people who don't know what to believe, but are in many ways much like you in this openness to, let's question things that need to be questioned. Let's be honest, and let's go where we need to go. I really want to just commend you for that. I find it inspiring, and I really think it's awesome. I hope that we get a chance to talk even a little bit more in depth. Hopefully, we'll run into each other on Facebook and things like. But
sure.
Thank you so much for being a part of this.
Oh, no problem.
Gus,
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. And again, we would love to have you again on the show. It's been a pleasure. With this, I will need to do my quick sign off. So thank you to the audience and to all of our viewers for your fantastic comments, for interacting with us, for watching from home or the studio. We love to have your interaction, and thank you for joining us this week. Look forward to having you in the future with Inspiring Honesty at 6 p.m. every Sunday night. Next week, this is not absolutely concrete yet, I don't believe, but I will be joined by a fellow devangelist, a Facebook friend of mine who I met through my pursuits on here, on there, doing what I do. another atheist who is very similar but has a very different background. And it's I have no idea. He'll be the first like-minded individual I'll be bringing on the phone in that respect, or bring onto the show. So I'm excited for that. Thank you for joining us again, and tune in next week at 6 p.m. for Inspiring Honesty.